Hello Marlene, thank you for your question. How to connect yoga with your daily life? I think that's the really big question. There are different traditions in the yoga world. As we all know, yoga is very complex and very widespread. So there's one tradition that very much talks about stepping out of life, pulling yourself away from life so you're not so distracted with things. It makes it maybe easier to meditate, to contemplate the bigger questions. And yet I firmly believe that yoga is also available if you are living a normal life and you go to work and you have your relationships, because yoga is for everybody. You could sit in a cave for 5 years all by yourself and meditate and meditate and meditate, and then you might get the idea that you overcame your anger. And then after those 5 years you step out of your cave and the first 3 people piss you off so much that you go right back into the cave, because you notice, well, you didn't overcome your anger, you just avoided your anger for a long time. I think living life and being in relationships with others is the easiest way to put our practice into something very actual in your life. For that we need to, I think, reflect. There has to be some sort of reflection. And if meditation is for you just the most horrible idea in the world, maybe then instead of sitting down for 20 minutes, you could go through a nice walk, through nature or at the beach or something to get your mind out of your normal life. So there have to be increments of pulling yourself away, even just for a short time. All these questions, how to advance your practice, how to connect it more with your daily life, first and foremost, you have to put the time in and you have to put the effort in. What way works for you is individual. Some people really like the way of journaling. Journaling is a really great way to make a little bit more sense of what's going on in your head, because sometimes it can be very confusing. And it doesn't have to be pages and pages of journaling. It just keeps you with the main topics. And maybe there is a certain area on which you have to work more, or which is more interesting for you than, let's say, for your neighbor. For example, with the topic of anger. If anger would be a problem, you could write a journal just about your anger. You could, every time you feel the feeling of anger coming up, you write it down. And you might write down how you respond, or maybe noticing how long you're holding on to that same anger. All different things, but it will help you to visualize this a little bit more, to create a little bit more clarity. So next time you might have the choice to respond a little differently. That's the main game, I think. We are coming out of our reactive nature, this instinct, this impulse to do this or that. Often, for example, in anger, we just explode. It's just a reaction. But yoga over time, your yogic practice over time can give you this little moment of, wait a second. Actually, I don't want to react that way. I want to respond differently. Again, very, very individual process. You just got to make the time of it, and you have to find what works for you. For me, certain authors, even though they might be very bound to tradition, Jack Kornfield or Ram Dass or Alan Watts, I get a lot of inspiration out of it for my daily life, not connected to, let's say, the practice on the yoga mat or something. So it's maybe a matter of finding the right inspiration to connect it more. But really, all yoga is about the human existence, isn't it? There are, as our yogic practice is considering the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali very much, the first 2 limbs he describes are the yamas and the niyamas, sort of ways of how to live your life and how to relate to yourself and to others. And also in Buddhism, we have really beautiful traditions like metta practice, or considering things like gratitude or forgiveness. And that again might change very nicely our relationships that we have with others. But again, very personal journey. That's my idea. Okay.